Hello, welcome everyone to our webinar series here at the Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel, Nature Israel in the United States, Canadian Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel, UK and France. Welcome everybody. Already got 35 people, 40 people. People are joining right away. Thank you all so much for being here. We're going to get going in just a minute or two. We're already upwards of 50 people joining. So really appreciate it. We got a really interesting webinar tonight on a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I'm very interested in the topic. Check it out whenever I can when I'm in Jerusalem. And Oshra, who is with us tonight, is a delight, as you'll come to see. And she's got a lot of interesting experience in this very interesting niche of environmental education. And I would say an interesting niche of ultra-Orthodox life in Jerusalem. So welcome everybody. Thank you everybody for joining. Really appreciate you taking some time out of your day, your evening if you're in Israel. Say hello to us in the chat. Let us know where you're from. And anything else you want to ask, you can ask in the question and answer Q&A feature down at the bottom of your screen on Zoom or in the chat feature. But we're always here to answer your questions and hope to see you in Israel. Israel is open. Birthright is back. All of the tourism groups seem to be back, despite our own little spike of whichever variant of the Omicron we're on now. But things are on the upswing in Israel. A lot of people are flying back and forth. Chat is disabled. David, if you can hear that, for some reason the chat is disabled on this thing. That makes sense why nobody's actually posting it. So sure, I don't know. We can see if we can disable the chat. And we do have some feedback online. We saw that when we were testing. I'm not sure we can always take care of that, but please just bear with us. Yeah, sure. Right in the chat, right in the question and answers. Your any just chats you are, anything you'd like to let us know where you're from. Thank you, everybody. I think we're going to get going in just about a minute. I want to thank all of our hardworking volunteers, our board members, Nature Israel, all over the United States and Canadian CSPNI, Toronto-based organization, and our folks in the UK, folks in France, and all over the globe. Miroslav in Belgrade have not missed a webinar yet. We're over 70 participants here on this webinar, which is a great turnout for the early midsummer. I think we're live on Facebook. Yep, we are live on Facebook too. And already got a bunch of people there as well. So welcome everybody. Let's get going. My name is Jay Shofet. I direct partnerships and development for the Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel, Israel's oldest, largest, leading environmental NGO. Thank you so much for your interest and your support of our work. There'll be a donation link in the chat. The chat has been disabled. So there will not be one unless we get that chat working. But you can always donate to us. We will maybe put one up in the question and answer box, or of course you can find us online at natureisrael.org. Donate. We're thrilled tonight to have with us our environmental education coordinator for our Jerusalem branch of SPNI, Oshra Attia. Oshra is coming to us live from LA, Los Angeles on the West Coast. She's visiting family. She lives here in Israel and directs environmental education activities, mostly, I believe, in the formal education sector, working with various sectors in Israeli society, as we do, all the sectors really. But Oshra in particular has developed an expertise and experience in working with the ultra-Orthodox sector in Israel, which is a fascinating sector to learn about. It's fascinating that they're learning some environmental organizations, environmental education. Oh good, the chat is now abled. And please let us know who you are, where you're from. Always interested. Thank you very much. And I'll turn it over to Oshra for a 45-minute talk now. And we'll take some questions and answers at the end. So please write them in the question and answer section. And Oshra, so nice to have you. I've been meaning to do this for a really long time. Very, very interesting topic we don't talk enough about in SPNI, and certainly not in the Israeli environmental movement. But fill us in on what's going on.
Okay, thanks, Jay. Hi, everybody. So yes, I'm Oshra Attia. I am coming to you, as Jay said, live from Los Angeles. That's my hometown. I'm here visiting family. Grew up here in LA. I've been living in Israel for 21 years. I live in Tekoa, if anybody knows where that is. It's just outside of Jerusalem. It's a small village outside of Jerusalem. And I've been at SPNI for already 12 years. I'm the environmental education coordinator in the Jerusalem area. So as I'm sure you all know, Jerusalem is a very varied city, a lot of different sectors in Jerusalem. There is a very large ultra-Orthodox population, and there's a large Arab population, and then there's all the rest, just the Jewish population, which ranges from non-religious to religious as far as the school system goes. So we work in all the sectors. I'll explain to you just a little bit what environmental education is. A lot of people know SPNI as the folks that you go out hiking with, and well, we definitely do that. And there are a lot of hikes that the kids go on through the year via school. But that's not what environmental education is in SPNI lingo. Environmental education is in the formal school system, but it's educational programming within the regular school day. So it's not trips where we get on a bus and go somewhere far away. It's in the area of the school, like in the local environment. In the school itself, some of the programming is in the gardens of the school. Some of the schools have community gardens that are on school premises, and so we'll work outside in the garden and take the kids out to see local urban nature sites. So it's environmental education is based in the school, in the regular school day, and not trips that are taking the kids to far places. So that's as far as environmental education goes. So environmental education in the Orthodox sector. So in SPNI, we realized, pretty quickly, many years ago already, that if we want to achieve our aim of nature preservation in Israel, we need to include the ultra-Orthodox population. The ultra-Orthodox population is a quickly growing sector. It's one of the most quickly growing sectors in Israel. I'm trying to click through to my next slide, but it's not working. That's interesting. Hold on, folks. Bear with me here. Oh, there we go. Okay. It's the most fastest growing sector in Israel, as you can see from this little graphic here. Oh, sorry. Oh no, technical difficulties. Sorry, folks. I'm not like the most tech savvy person, so I'm having a little bit. Okay, there we go. Here we go. We're back. Okay, it's the fastest growing sector in Israel. As you can see from this little chart here, the dark blue is the ultra-Orthodox sector. So as you can see at the bottom, if you read a little bit Hebrew, it says Haredim. So let me just use that word because it's shorter. We're going to just use Haredi from now on. Haredi is the Hebrew for ultra-Orthodox. So the Haredi sector is that blue line, and you can see that it's growing at a pretty good rate. The fastest growing sector in Israel, ultra-Orthodox children in Jerusalem are 63% of the school system, meaning 63% of the Jewish school system, not including the Arab population, of Jewish schools in Israel. 63% of all the kids that start first grade every year are Haredi. So obviously we need to get to these kids, we need to get to these families and these folks if we're going to accomplish our mission of protecting nature in Israel. We can't ignore this huge entire sector that's so big and growing so quickly. So we decided, okay, we are going to just go for it. We're going to attempt to enter this ultra-Orthodox world, this Haredi world, with environmental education. Me as an environmental educator, of course, I believe that it all starts in education. Hopefully in 20 years, 30 years, we can stop with all of the protests and all of the fights against building, because we'll have educated all the children so that they are now the ones that are in the key positions of power, and they're the politicians, and they're making the decisions, and they're deciding everything for the environment. That's the dream. So education is super important. So we've got to get to everybody, to all these kids. So what's the problem, though, is that here we have the Haredi sector. Now, this is not what they're thinking, okay? This is our dream. We would like that they're thinking, wow, they love the planet and they want to protect it, but this isn't exactly what's going on in their heads. What is going on in their heads? What is important to them? The Torah and Judaism and the mitzvot. So I don't want to say that that's a challenge, because, obviously we respect everybody's beliefs, and that this is what their focus is on. So that's 100% fine. But somehow we want to kind of get in there also and have them see that this is not something that's against their worldview. Sorry, I kind of forgot my English, being in Israel so long, so I get a little rusty with the English. So it's not something that's going against their worldview. It's something that can fit in with the love of Torah. So that's kind of the challenge, is to get into this get environmental education into the Haredi school system and have it seen as something that's safe, that's okay, that's acceptable. If anything that we would say or do would be considered as being against their worldview, against the Torah, or against mitzvot, we would be out in a minute. So, we were very, very careful in the beginning. But we kind of had to learn as we went along. So in 2012, the journey began, and this was basically what it looked like in the beginning. Like, you just they just throw you in the water. We didn't really have a model to go on. We didn't have anybody else's work to look at and say, okay, that's how it's done. We didn't really have anybody to confer with, to get advice from. So we just said, okay, let's do it. So, that's kind of us throwing ourselves into the water and saying, let's go for it. And in 2012, the journey began. So before I'm going to tell you kind of what we learned along the way, but I'll do that on the end. We'll just get right now to what exactly it was we did and what did it look like. So in the beginning, like as I said, the problem is getting into these really closed sectors. They are just not interested in anything that's not from the world of Torah, mitzvot, and that doesn't jive and line up with that world. So we really wanted to come to them on in their language, in their level, and as they are, just to come to them kind of on the same level. So in the beginning, we wrote curriculum specifically for the Haredi sector. I was part of that. We had some folks that were Haredi who helped us with the writing of it, and it was really important to us to have this curriculum written that was specifically for the Haredi sector, and not use our regular curriculum, which is used for everybody. We did training courses, especially for Haredi guides. Here you see a couple pictures of them. We did one course for women in the beginning, which was 15 participants. Recently, we did another one that was specifically just for guiding in the Gazelle Valley in Jerusalem, if you know that place. We did 3 courses for men. In each course, there was about 5 men. It was a little bit more difficult to find men that were fitting for being guides and that wanted to. As you may know, men in the Haredi sector work less than women do. So the women are out there, they're getting higher education, they're in the workforce, and the men are learning Torah. So it was actually not really difficult to find the women. It was more difficult to find the men. So the men's courses were a bit smaller. But, there are some gems in there. You see these men standing up. You see the guy who's standing up with holding the picture, showing the other guys. He's standing off to the left there. That's Chanoch. Chanoch is actually still with us. He was in, I think this was the second course that we ever did, which was, so I guess it must have been 9 years ago, and he's still guiding with us today. He since then went on to get his certification as accreditation certification as a hike leader, and which is officially diploma from that you can work in the Ministry of Education, taking kids on hikes, being a guide. And he did that since he did a course with us and started working with us. He liked the environment, and he liked nature, and this kind of opened up his eyes to what's possible, and he went on to really to go forward in this oh gosh, I'm so bad with the English. Anyway, to go forward in the world of nature preservation and working with kids in nature. So that's great. That's, as far as I see it, it's like a success story, because some one person like that in the Haredi sector that comes and he's really from that world really helps and opens the eyes of the people that he's talking to, because they say, oh well, he's Haredi and he's all about nature, he's a tree hugger, and the two things don't clash. So that's really good to have those folks on our side or with us. And there's some of the other folks too. We'll see them later on that came and have been with us ever since. So there's lots of challenges. There were a lot of challenges. So we got ourselves ready, did all this kind of stuff, write curriculum, get the guides, train them. But even though we tried to prepare ourselves as best as we could, as we had just jumped into the water, so we came up against a lot of challenges. Now, environmental preservation, being a tree hugger, loving nature, all that stuff, is at first glance, when Haredi educators look at what we're offering, they don't see it as something that is necessarily clashing with their worldview. Now, we know how also to say it in ways that are accepted by them. We say, oh, we're going to teach the kids. We don't come in right away and say, oh yeah, we're going to go out, we're going to have signs, we're going to do protests, we're going to, have the kids on the forefront. No, that's something that in regular schools, in, non-Haredi schools, they would love that. Yeah, we're going to be really active. The kids are going to do projects. They're going to work with the community. They're going to be, out there and pushing for environmental preservation. In the Haredi community, no way. They don't want to hear that. That's not acceptable. That's not part of the worldview. So we come in and we say, we're going to teach the kids about the wonders of nature, how nature is so beautiful and amazing, the wonders of the Creator, and what they can do to protect the creation. That's the language. So we came in with that language, and we found that, okay, they're willing to accept it, and they're willing to listen, and they're willing to hear what it is, because it's considered a safe topic. Now, what would be another topic that wouldn't be safe necessarily? If you came in and just said, science. Okay, science, wow, you could go crazy. There's a lot of things in there that are going to maybe be against, considered against the Torah, or anything that necessarily is is part of a curriculum, because in the Haredi schools, most of the schools don't learn a full curriculum. The boys don't learn math, they don't learn English, they're not learning science, they're not learning just about anything except for Torah. They might learn a little basic math, that's it. The girls learn more. But even if you just come in and they have a feeling that you have a scent of pushing curriculum, they're not going to be into that. So, it was just like, no, it's just nature. We love the nature. We love the trees. We're going to go out. We're going to have experiences. They're very into experiences. Even in the boys' schools, they realize that when a child that's 7 or 8 years old is being expected to sit for 8 hours a day and learn out of a book, it's not working. At a certain point, they just can't sit so long. Their head isn't clear enough to really be able to focus after so many hours. So they were interested in getting the kids out for an hour and a half during the day to kind of, air them out a little bit. And they saw it as a good way to do it. Now, the whole reason we were able to even get in the door, as you see, okay, so wait, let's go back to the beginning of the list. Finding suitable candidates for guiding. So we found suitable candidates for guiding. With the men, as I said, it was more challenging. There was a lot of turnover. We had a lot of folks that, they started and then they kind of freaked out. They had like cold feet because while they were working in the Haredi school system, our work environment, in our offices and, working with me and coming to, to staff meetings and that kind of stuff, it kind of freaked them out at some point, because then they're like, okay, there's all kinds of people here and this is not a Haredi environment. They very much live in a bubble. So we did lose people along the way because of that, especially the men, who they're very like, they're like protected. They more live in the Torah world. As I said, they're learning Torah all the time. When they found themselves in a non-Haredi environment, they kind of, okay, bye, this isn't good for me. And there was a lot of like flaking, not telling, just at the last minute, like, I can't do this anymore, goodbye, just kind of leaving us hanging and all this kind of stuff. It was pretty difficult. And we kind of found a way around that at this point. I'll talk about that later, how we we were able to get over that problem. But in the beginning, it was a problem to really find suitable candidates for the guiding. Staff management, managing a staff of Haredi guides is extremely difficult, just because they don't have, text messages. They don't have WhatsApp, which is in Israel, everybody is via WhatsApp communicating. Some of them don't even have emails. That's rare today, but some of them really just don't have emails. The one that do have email, it's either they check their email maybe once a week. So it's like if I send an important email, then I have to call to tell them that you got to check your email, and then they might not answer. And then if they don't answer, so then there's no way to send them a text message, hey, check your email, and you just got to wait for them to call you back. So that actually is super difficult to manage a staff in these days without all those technological advances that we are so used to. Also, just kind of funny things, like, okay, one of the male guides, okay, it's Rosh Hashanah, well, he's going to Uman. Well, that's what he does every year. It doesn't matter that he has a chug, he has a program that he's supposed to be teaching the kids. Well, it's almost Rosh Hashanah, I need to go to Uman. And of course, we have to accept that. The truth is that the schools also accept it, sometimes, and sometimes they're like, well, we got to find us somebody else to take his place. But it's like, okay, we just have to kind of line up, what our priorities are and what their priorities, and we can't, it's not like we can say, it's not like he's going on vacation to the Caribbean, or something, he wants, to fulfill this religious obligation that he has. So you have to really accept it and be understanding about it. But it's a little bit challenging. Okay, so back to getting a foot in the door. So getting a foot in the door. So we said, okay, this is a safe topic. We can get this foot in the door. We did that. We got into the schools. But once we're in the schools, it's difficult to get honest feedback from the teachers and from the principals, and from a lot of the programming is in the community centers. So afterwards, we want them to fill out, a little questionnaire or tell us how it was, because we want to improve, and because we're new to this world, we want to make sure that we're doing things the right way. But in the Haredi community, they're very particular and very careful about not hurting anybody's honor, not hurting anybody's feelings, not embarrassing anybody. So a lot of times it was just difficult to get honest feedback. Okay, how was the programming? How was it? It was always like, oh, it was fine, it was great. The guide was wonderful, everything was great. And it's like, okay, well, the guide said maybe there was little problems with mishmat, with discipline, with the kids. Oh, no, everything was fine, because they don't want to hurt his opportunity to work. They think maybe if they say that he wasn't so good, maybe I'll fire him. So they want to like protect him, and also they don't want to tell me like to my face that something wasn't good, because they don't want to hurt my honor. But then they might go and tell somebody else, another school. That's how a lot of times, unfortunately, how I found out that there were some things that we needed to fix, because they told me everything's great, but then they went and told another school or told another community center, listen, this was a little off. So then when I kind of heard that from around the kind of, they say in Israel like this, touch your ear. So they do it like this. I heard it from, this way, not directly. Then I was able to, make the adjustments, but it was difficult to have to deal with that and not really know, like, is everything going okay or not? Subtleties. So many subtleties in the Haredi community. So many things that I would never have thought of in my life to check or to be careful of, and I had to do them. I had to be careful of that, but it's stuff that I only found out on the way. One example of that is we were doing a project in a garden where we were making signs, and the kids were painting signs, that said tomatoes, eggplants, whatever it was. And so I brought newspaper, I just collected newspaper from wherever I got it, from my house, and brought newspapers so that we could spread it out on the ground so it wouldn't have paint everywhere. And so one of the moms that was there was like, let me just check the newspaper. And she went through every page of the newspaper to make sure that there weren't any inappropriate pictures before we spread the newspaper out. Now, I would never have thought of such a thing, but she was thinking of that. Are there anything in the newspaper that isn't appropriate, even though the newspaper was just kept before clean? So a lot of stuff like that was that we just had to like really, adjust as we're going to find out, to make sure that we were okay. Now, as I said before, one thing that we do wrong, we're out the door. They're not going to ask any questions. Their number one thing is protecting these kids from anything that's not the world of Torah. So we don't have so much room, for error here. So we just had to be super, super careful. And, sometimes maybe, we didn't do something 100%. People were, in the schools, in the community centers, the Haredi folks were very appreciative of the fact that, say me, I'm not Haredi, but I'd come there with a long sleeve and dressed properly, and they saw that we're trying. So they did have, some tolerance for it, but really if there was anything that was, just too much, they wouldn't hesitate to just cancel. Thankfully, we didn't have too much of that, but we did learn things along the way. Funding, the last thing on our list of challenges. as most of you probably know, the ultra-Orthodox community in Israel is a very low-income community. They're not participating fully in the workforce usually. Men are learning, as I said. The women, if they're working low-income jobs, or they're not working full-time because they have many children. So the whole entire sector is they're it's not a sector that there's a lot of funding, that people are flush. So if we didn't come with funded programming, there just wasn't anything to talk about. There was just no way to get in. We had to come in and say, oh yeah, here's the programs and it's good. We have Haredi guides, we have curriculum especially for the Torah world, and it's funded. Without the funding, there's just no way that they're gonna be able to pay for it. They just don't have the money for it. In regular schools in Israel, parents pay thousands of shekels every year for all these extracurricular activities, the hikes and the special programming, all this. In the Haredi schools, they don't ask for this money from the parents. There's just no extra funding. And so we had funding from the Jerusalem Foundation, from some other sources that enabled us to really just get in, to come in and be able to offer them this. And they said, okay, well, it looks okay. Looks like you guys are legit, you're kosher, and it's funded. Okay, so we were able to get in the door. A lot of times in the community centers is where we started. The community centers are easier than the schools. The schools have to be, as they say in Israel, holier than the Pope. It's a school. It's where you send your kids to be educated. So they have to fulfill they have to check off all the boxes, being the most protected, the most Torah, no external influences. The community centers are easier because just an extracurricular activity in the community centers, the parents sign you up for it, so the parents are deciding what their kids are doing, and there isn't this pressure of the school having to be 100%. So it was easier to get into the community centers. So we would offer the funding. The funding was never 100%, because we want to make sure that they are placing value on what we're offering them. So we wouldn't fund it 100%. Sometimes we would fund it 90%, and they would just give what we call in Hebrew demei retzinut, a seriousness money that just shows that they're actually serious about it. They had to pay something. That 200 or 300 or 400 shekels that they had to pay, it was important enough to them to show that the programming has value. So they did pay something small, but without that funding, really, it wouldn't have been possible at all. Okay, so let's go into the nitty-gritty. What exactly did we do? So extracurricular activities in community centers and schools. As I said, it was easier to get into the community centers. We did do it in several schools, dozens of schools, but it was easier in the community centers to get in for the reasons I spoke about earlier. Each course was about 10 to 15 meetings, depending on what the school wanted. We didn't offer them less than 10. That was the minimum, because we do want to make an impact. But they could have 10, they could have 12, they could have 15. It was about 500 participants per year, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. And the topics were, nature, and here it's called a chug, nature chug, chug teva, outdoor skills, which outdoor skills we offered to boys and girls, but they're very in the Haredi community, they're very into assigned to gender roles. So the outdoor skills, hardly any girls courses were given in that. Of course, the courses are separate. Boys course, girls course, not together. And the outdoor skills, even though every time I say that's also good for girls, girls can also do it. They always stick up for boys and not for girls. Gardening. Birding. We did a mothers and daughters nature course, which was really fun. It was really great. It wasn't super popular because the mothers are really busy. Like, we didn't do it so many times in so many different places, but the few times that we did do it, it was really popular. Their moms are busy. They have a lot of little kids on their hands, and they're working, so they didn't really have the hour and a half each week, to do something with their daughters. But the few places that we did do it, it was great. And here you see a couple more of our guides in action. Okay, here we go. I love pictures where the people are pointing at stuff. I don't know, I just feel like it's the ultimate nature picture. Like, wow, look at that. So here, it happened to be here, they saw a sufit, which is a Palestinian sunbird. It kind of looks like a hummingbird, and they were like, wow, look at that bird. They're all pointing, so I love those pictures. I think they're so cute. Community events. So the community events also were with the community centers, and in urban nature sites within the Haredi neighborhoods. Now, these could be really large parks. A lot of times it was parks that border on open space, on forest, or on Choresh Yam Tichoni, just what we call in California chaparral. Open spaces, open urban nature sites. In Jerusalem, there are a lot of those. A lot of times we would find that these folks didn't even know the site. They had never been there, even though they might live 2 streets over, or they might live, just even across the street, but they just would go. They'd go into the park, you know, and then when the park ended, instead of saying, "Hey, what's over there? Let's continue and hike. Let's explore the nature. Let's see what's over there," they would just, you know, go home. That's kind of the wild. They're not into it. That's the untamed area. They wouldn't go into it. So we were like, "Hey, let's go. Let's take hikes. Let's show you what's out there." And they would come along, and we really just were able to introduce folks to their own backyard, their own nature, their own urban nature that's so close to their homes. And people really, you know, would get excited about it. And then we'd say, "Okay, well, sorry to break it to you, but you know they want to build here. They're gonna make a sports stadium here. They're gonna make a new neighborhood here." And they, "No, but we can't let them." And so, wow, all of a sudden, here we go. We got these folks on board with our struggles to save nature. What's really good about the community events is that these are adults, so they could do whatever they want. We don't have the this kind of roadblock of kids and not wanting to radicalize, you know, the kids or get them too much on the activist end of things. The parents can decide what they want. The parents brought their kids to the event. They can go ahead and have their kids, you know, they can make the decisions for their kids. They're not within the school system. So that really enabled us. These community events really enabled us to talk a little bit more preservation, talk a little bit more activism, which we love to do. We did about 3 to 6 events per year. There was up to 2,000 participants per year. We had one neighborhood where we would do huge events that would be 600, 700, 800 folks, and then we usually would be like 200 to 300. And yeah, those are the community events. And again, this really gave us an opportunity to bring the you know, our nature preservation and our activism into the Haredi community, and to get to the adults and not just to the kids. Here's some pictures just from some of the events. Here's some of our Haredi guides teaching about recycling and about what you can do in your everyday life to protect the environment. Here's one of the hikes. You see the moms here. This is in remote. This is the one spot that has a great view. You can see just under his hand, you can see the bridge, the Gesher HaMetarim, the bridge in the entrance of Jerusalem. It's huge. You can just see it there sticking up, the bridge there. Here's this game. Now, I want to also talk to you about Yoni, who you see sitting there with his arms around his knee. Again, that was another one of our guides that answered a help wanted ad and came to our course and started guiding. And he lives in Ramot, which is one of the areas where there's a big struggle to save an open space, Mitzpeh Niftoach, which is one of the one of the highest rated urban nature sites in Jerusalem as far as the biological diversity that's in it. So he lives in that neighborhood. And after doing our course and guiding with us and finding out, hey, this spot is in danger, he got involved with the local environmental organization, Remote for the Environment, which is a small volunteer-based grassroots organization that their whole purpose is to save Mitzpeh Niftoach. And he said, "Yeah, I want to get involved." And he got involved, and they kind of made him the poster boy, because this neighborhood is now mostly Haredi, but it wasn't always like that. And the folks that are involved in the grassroots organization are not Haredi. But they want to get the Haredi neighbors in on it, because otherwise they're not going to be able to save the spot. So he got involved with them. And again, it's like a victory that, hey, we got somebody who brought them in just because they love nature, just because. And he ended up being an activist and really just being in the front lines of this organization and in their fight to save the environment, their local urban nature. So that was great. So that's Yoni. There he is. Just some more, again, some adults. They got some literature there. They're learning about our efforts to save the urban nature there, and learning about the local biodiversity. And yeah, look over there, birds. One of our top guides here. Now, here I'll share with you something else that we learned along the way. While in the beginning we really were so particular about making sure that we had Haredi guides, that we had Ultra-Orthodox guides, we found out as we went along, and also having the curriculum, that was the curriculum that's specifically written for the Ultra-Orthodox community, we found out on the way that if it's a one-time event, like this type of an event, where it's just a community event, it's one time, it's not something that's continual, that the kids are meeting with the guide every week, it was actually fine with them that we wouldn't have Haredi guides. They didn't mind at all. And this is something that we found out by asking. I was a big believer in asking. If I'm not sure, I'll ask. hey, is it okay that we have non-Haredi guides? Is it okay that we, do this X, Y, Z? If I wasn't sure about something, I would just ask, and they would really, they would be honest with me. So we found out pretty quickly that for the one-time events, we don't need Haredi guides. We were able to bring in guides that were, our top guides that are not Haredi, that are maybe not even religious. The boys, the men, as long as they had something covering their head. The women, they had to dress appropriately, skirts, long sleeves, and all that. But as long as they did that, it was really fine. Now, as far as the curriculum, also we found out at some point, we realized you don't need to have curriculum that's specifically written for the Haredi sector, as long as the guides themselves are Haredi, because the guides know how to do the selection of what's appropriate and what's not. If there's anything that might be considered just a little bit not okay, they won't say it. They won't do it. They won't say it. They know in a natural way how to do that filtering. So as long as the guides themselves are Haredi, we don't need to have special curriculum that's written for the Haredi sector. So that was an interesting aha moment and a revelation that we had along the way. I really tried a lot to get the non-Haredi guides also into the continual programming. That didn't work out. It was really important for them that if the kids are meeting somebody every single week, that somebody needs to be from the Haredi world. And as I said, it was challenging. We did have some slip-ups, along the way with guides, like I said, that weren't really committed to what they were doing, or that didn't have a lot of background. They didn't know, so much about that world, and they were learning along the way. But we kind of want to send somebody in that can really represent the organization in the best way, not somebody who's kind of learning along the way. But we realized that there's nothing to do about it. They need to be Haredi, so we're going to teach them along the way. We're going to grow them up, raise them up, and we had some big successes with a couple guys that you saw and some other folks as well. But it was challenging. I remember one of the courses that we did, there was a guide that we talked about how everything in nature is important and all the different species, even if we don't necessarily understand why they're important, but they are. And so one of them raised their hand and he says, well, what about bees? Bees are just, what is the point of bees? Are bees really important to the ecosystem? And I remember the person that, was running the course with me, we kind of looked at each other like, we tried not to just do this. I was like, wow, bees are super important. So of course, we were very professional. We said, wow, that's a great question. Bees are really important. And, to us, it was just like, wow, how could you not realize how bees are important? And it's like, this is somebody who was a grown man, but he never learned science. He never learned about pollination. He doesn't know why bees are important. He doesn't understand that it's important to the ecosystem. We have to teach them. So then it was like, we're nervous. This is the person we're sending to teach kids about the environment. They have such small amount of knowledge themselves, but we just realized, okay, we just have to raise them up. We have to teach them. We have to give them information. And thankfully, they came with motivation and they were able to do it. This is like one of the challenges. Here we have, speaking of bugs, one of the activities that we do often with the kids is learning about bugs. We give them these special cups. The top of it is a magnifying glass, and they collect bugs, and they look at them, and they learn how to identify them, and ask questions and answer them. How many legs do they have? What do you think they eat? What are they doing now? And something that first the teachers or the parents, if it's a community event, are like, ew, gross, or no, there's no way the girls are going to be into it. So here we have this cute little girl, and she is so proud of these millipedes that she found, and the kids are just, they take this cup and they're looking at it, and the teacher's like, oh, the bug is so close to your face. No, it's okay, it's contained in this. And the kids loved it, and the teachers are like, wow, they really are into the bugs. Okay, it's something that the kids just really, really love. Also the girls, they just love their bugs. So those are some folks.
Oshra, I'm sorry. What has she got in her cup there?
Millipedes.
Oh, millipedes. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Millipedes.
Great. As we call it.
Okay. So another part of our program that we did was school visits to the Gazelle Valley and the Jerusalem Bird Observatory. Maybe you folks have visited those places. If not, I would love to take you for a little jaunt through them next time you're in Jerusalem. And those are about 1,000 participants per year. In the beginning, we had funding through a special donor who funded specifically for trips to those places. Later on, we had the municipality paying for some of it. Because as we said, the kids, it's got to be funded. If it's not funded, it's not happening. We would have the kids, we'd tell the school you have to pay 3 shekels per student or 4 shekels per student as their matching, and they would come with like a sack of all the coins. They would just have every kid bring 3 shekels and put it in a bag. Okay, here, then give it to me. Here's the payment. And we would always laugh about that. They would just bring us these huge sacks of coins. So yeah, here's some pictures from the Gazelle Valley. It's really a gem. It's a pearl in Jerusalem. and kids just flipping over rocks and just seeing, hey, what's that on the rock? Something that they not necessarily ever would think to do or think would be interesting, but here they are interested in it. They met some gazelles, really exciting, and yeah, again looking at some bugs, looking at some birds. This was a gazelle that really liked people, and so you were able to get real close to her. They made sure nobody ever touched her, but she would get really close to the kids, and they would really be excited about that. Community gardens, that's another project that we did. We did it in collaboration with the community centers in 5 different communities. Volunteer initiated this, absolutely, because we didn't have a community center, that was kind of above supporting, but it wasn't in the community centers, it was in the neighborhoods, and we didn't have a school as the framework for it, so it was really important that it would be volunteer initiated. We only did this in places where we had residents that came and said, hey, I want to do this. Adults, it had to be adults. So that was something that did happen in some of the we were able to do it in some of the communities. Again, we had a donor who specifically donated for this project. In each garden there would be weekly work days where the neighbors would come out and they would work with the kids in the garden, and this was just really amazing, super eye-opening for the kids. Just like, wow, plants grow, wait a minute, you mean the tomato or the cucumber, it just grows off this plant? They just had no idea how this stuff happens. So yeah, doing cleanup, we took a lot of times, we would take areas that were just trash dumps or that kids would just be burning bonfires there when they were bored and make them into beautiful community gardens. Here's an example. This is the before. There was some kind of effort to make it into a community garden at some point. We took these pictures from the top of a building that was behind the community center. They tried making it into a garden, it didn't work. Here you see there's a lot of water, the pipes were leaking and everything, so we said, okay, let's do this. We got somebody to come build the beds, and here we had a planting event where everybody came and planted. So here you see everybody in effect planting the garden, and yeah, really well attended and a lot of fun, and really an opportunity to get into the communities and to also leave something there for them that they can then be responsible for, caretake, go forward with, get into, get dirty, roll their sleeves up. And yeah, these are really fun projects that became the gardens. And again, it's super important that there's adults always. When we do the weekly work days, we had a rule, if it's all kids, because they'll send you out, you'll find yourself with 15 or 20 kids between the ages of 2 and 6, which is not copacetic. Okay, only kids from 6 and above. There's got to be adults there. If there aren't any adults, then we're folding up. We can't have only a bunch of kids and 1 or 2 guides and a lot of tools. It's going to be a huge balagan, a huge mess. It has to be adults there. And also, we want to make sure that the adults are always involved, because it's just too easy for them to, okay, mom has to cook or do chores or whatever it is, or she wants to rest or nurse the baby, so just send the kids down. It's right below the house. Send the kids down, let them work in the garden. No, this is a community project. The adults have to be there too. So we really made sure that there was adult participation. Clean Israel project.
Oshra, sorry, I just want to give you about a 5-minute warning. There are a lot of questions.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna run through them. Clean Israel project, cleaning up the neighborhoods, picking up all the garbage, taking it out. They weren't throwing away the baby. He was just so excited. He wanted to put the bag in the garbage also, so they lifted him up so he could also take part. So that's the Clean Israel project. Okay, what we learned along the way. So what did we learn after they threw us in the water and we learned to swim? What did we learn? Here we have aseh lo taseh. Thou shalt not. Thou shall respect differences. Everybody's different. We are not going to ever be experts at all of the shades of gray between the black and white in the Haredian community. So we just have to respect the differences and really just all the time remember that. And thou shalt not judge. I think it's very easy to say in the community, oh, they're so dumb. Oh, they're so, I see a lot of judgment of it. Like, oh, God, all this single-use plastic, and oh, gosh, they don't know anything. And the guy thinks that bees are not important to the ecosystem, and they don't realize the environment. It could be a lot of judgment. So it's really important not to judge and just to be really open-minded, even if, we don't agree. We shall teach, thou shalt teach. We came in to teach and not to prove or to educate. Now, the reason that, as soon as we come in and we're, new, you guys are wrong, we're right, and this is why, or we're trying to re-educate you, we're out. It really has to be with a lot of humility. We can teach, we can give over the information, but we are not coming in with the new. Relate Jewishly. Of course, we're going to relate to the holidays. Of course, before Shavuot, we're going to talk about, about wheat, because the Shavuot is all about the wheat harvest. We're going to talk about On Hanukkah, then we talk about oil and olive oil, and we're going to relate all the time to whatever point we are in the Jewish cycle of the year. But we're not going to talk Yiddishkeit, because if they think for a second that we are trying to talk Yiddishkeit, or that's their turf, everybody has their Rav, their rabbi, who they hold by, and if they think for a minute that we're coming in to talk Yiddishkeit, or to push a Jewish some kind of hashkafa, we're going to be out on our ear in a minute. So that was really important. What's that?
Oshra, quick interruption, because a lot of people have asked, when you say relate Jewishly, what about Shemitah, letting the land go fallow, about Sar Balei Chaim?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely relate to the mitzvot. Again, this is a way that having the Orthodox...
the commandments.
What's that?
I'm just translating mitzvot, are the commandments.
Oh, the commandments. Sorry, I'll try to see it all in English. We could definitely talk about the commandments and things that it says in the Torah, but we can't be too heavy on that stuff. We're not going to ignore that it's a Shemitah year. We're not going to ignore that, when we're talking about animals, we'll talk about, the prohibition on cruelty to animals. We can't ignore that stuff, but we can't be too heavy about it. We definitely can't get into the world of halacha, Jewish law, because everybody holds by their own rabbi. So yeah, we're going to relate Jewishly, but we're going to do it, on the light side, and nothing really that has to do with the Jewish law. Holidays, yes. The commandments, like I said, lightly, where it pertains to our no say. I can't speak English. It's horrible. The topic that we're talking about, but nothing too heavy. But this is also where having the Ultra-Orthodox guides is really good, because that enables us to really just be chill. I can be chill. I can be calm. I know that our guide knows how to do it, because he comes or she comes from that world, and they're going to do it the right way. So it's really important to have the Haredi guides. Thou shalt ask. As I said, I'm always asking. If I'm not sure, I'll ask. Don't assume. Oh, the Haredim, so they do this or they don't do this, because as I said, it looks black and white, the Haredi world, but it's actually lots of gray. So ask, and they really appreciate asking, because they understand that we're being considerate and we're doing our best to to be kosher, be okay. Be tolerant, as always in life. I think it's really important, not only here, but in general also. Be tolerant. And you don't have to always be right. Okay, I don't agree, but in this community where it's such a closed community, and we have to really be so careful. Okay, we don't have to always necessarily be right. Obviously, if somebody's going to give wrong information about, our topics of environment or biodiversity or whatever it is, we'll correct. But this more has to do with, things that have to do with worldview, Okay, thou shalt not while guiding. Taboo subjects. This is really important when we do have the one-time events that non-Orthodox guides are teaching. Reproduction. We don't talk about it. Obviously, we're not talking about mating or any of that stuff. No way. Evolution, off the table. Anything that has to do with 50,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, millions of years ago, whatever it is, we can't say this rock formation was formed through geological events that happened 200,000 years ago. No way. The world is only 5,000 and something years old. You have to respect that. Again, this is another place. Be tolerant and, don't judge. Slang. I had one time a school call me, and this was a guide that was not ultra-Orthodox, but he's national Orthodox. And they said it was okay. They said it was fine. He could do that. He could teach the course. He had a long payout and everything. They met him. They said he's cool. But a child went home, and they used a word that their parents got really upset about, that they learned from the guide. And what was the word? Sababa. Now, people were shocked when they heard this. What? Sababa? That's not allowed? Yeah, as far as they're concerned, that's street talk. That's, that's slang. We don't talk that way. We don't say sababa. So we have to be really careful about just speaking really clean language and no slang. Telling a kid...
Excuse me, let me just interrupt you for a second and just let people know that when you say reproduction, you mean the most banal parts of animal reproduction. You're not talking human reproduction. You're talking about nesting cycles with birds and, basic stuff like that you can't.
Right, yeah. We're not going to say, oh, the mating, when the male and the female mate, and you don't even say impregnation. There's even certain words. You kind of have to say it in code, You say, when the mommy gazelle has a baby in her belly, and the baby comes out, you have to really do it like you're talking to a 3-year-old. You can't say in the mating season, or the bird is trying to the male bird is trying to attract the female bird by showing their colorful plumage. Wait a minute, no, just has to be really mommy, daddy, very kindergarten style. Google it. You can't tell the kids to Google it. That's like telling them to go do a huge sin. Like, we're not doing Google. We're not going on the internet. And having a smartphone, even though today some of the Haredi guys do have a smartphone, very few, but some do. But say if I'm there and I want to take pictures, I'm not taking out my smartphone. It's like, it's like you took out a pork chop or something. Like, can't be doing any of that. So these are the kind of things we have to remember not to do in active guiding when the kids are just right there in front of you. Dilemmas. I do want to talk about dilemmas. Yeladim movilim shinui. This is the title of our environmental education programming in the non-Haredi communities. In the beginning, we use this. It means children leading change. But then we realized, wait, we can't have children leading change because they're not interested in children leading anything. Children must do as they're told. And they're not interested in change even. Things need to stay the same way that they are. So we're not using this term of children leading change. Here we have this X and O game that we printed up a ton of these nationwide for use in all the schools. It's really helpful. You can use it in all different subjects. Give the kids a quiz. Some are X's, some are O's, and then they put the X's and O's down. But you see, this bit right here was printed with a picture of some girls. And there was just some girls pointing up, my favorite thing, pointing up at the huge sunflowers that are here. And like I guess I have to cover up this picture of girls because I'm using this with boys. So I just took some, white stickers and covered up pictures of the girls. And for me, that was a dilemma. I'm a feminist. I don't want to hide. I don't want to have to cover up pictures of girls. But we said this getting to these folks with environmental preservation with our message is more important maybe than my sensitivities to feminism. So we had to do it. Although it really is a dilemma. For some guides, wearing the long sleeves from the girls, they couldn't do it. Okay, so it's not for you. Male guides that wanted to come to the one-time events that had like a nose ring, or even female guys with a nose ring, or men with an earring. Look, you got to take it out. Well, I can't. I'm not doing it. That's where I draw the line. Okay, so you can't work in these communities. But it is a dilemma because we want to be able to be who we are, but at the same time kind of get to these folks with our message. So it's it can be difficult.
Quickly, Oshra, because I want to get to the questions.
Yeah. So So maybe this is just some more environmental education in schools, environmental education proper. We were able to get into some schools where we did have these projects that in cooperation with the Education Department of the Jerusalem municipality. We did teacher training to teach the teachers how to do outdoor learning with the kids, which is huge, something that we never were able to do before. We had an emphasis on experiential learning rather than just experiences for fun. And we were able to do projects, community projects with the kids. In one of the schools, we had a boys' school and a girls' school that did these programming this year. In the boys' school, they made a bird guide. They drew the bird according to a picture that they had. They wrote a little bit of information on the bird. We printed a bunch of these and handed them out to the parents and to the teachers and to all the kids. And so they had their own bird guide that they made. So that was really great and exciting. In the girls' school, they made game cards. They made these big game cards. We printed them out, and we have them in every classroom in the school because they have a really great open nature site next to their school. So they made these cards where they made games, and each card explains how to do games outside, how to do games in nature using the natural resources, and they have them for all the teachers so that the teachers can go out with the kids and have outdoor learning time. And the girls were the ones who took the pictures, decided about the games together with our guide, decided which games they wanted to do, and we made it look all nice and pretty and printed them out. So that was great. Those are the projects that we did this year in those. And these are schools that are Haredi schools, but we were able to do a little bit more of what we normally do in other schools, including, like I said, the projects and the teacher trainings, and not just courses that were mostly for like I said, experiences for fun. These were more experiential learning. So that was great. This is my last little thing. They have this note here that in one of our courses, we asked the kids at the end to just give them a little piece of paper. We asked them to write something that they accept upon themselves to do from now on, as a result of what they learned in the course. So this little note a boy wrote: I won't she'ani lo esrof plastic yoter. I will not burn plastic anymore. And I thought that was just so amazing, like something so small like that, but something that he learned, because Haredi kids here in Jerusalem and all over Israel, one thing that they love to do when they're bored is just to do a bonfire. They just find some empty lot and do bonfires, and they're burning plastic and they're burning all kinds of stuff. So when I saw this little note, I said, I'm gonna keep this, and I just kept it in my work bag, So it's like when I feel like, wow, this is so hard working in this Haredi community, and it's just so difficult. What impact are we making? And it's like one step forward, two steps back, and we're not able to just charge forward like we really want to do, and how we would do in other schools. I just remember this little note. Well, Yehuda Bloy learned that it's not good to burn plastic, and he accepted on himself not to burn plastic anymore. And it kind of just gave me energy to keep going forward, because every little seed that we plant, we don't know. Yehuda Bloy might be Rosh Memshalah, might be the PM one day. And he might take with him these things that he learned with us. So yeah, so thank you very much, and I will be happy to take your questions.
Wow, Oshra, thank you so much. Very interesting. I have a million questions. There are a million questions here. But
Okay.
to follow up on a couple things that you just said,
Okay.
and really briefly, like in a minute. I mean, um, have you seen any concrete changes? And overall, what would you say is the impact? You just kind of touched on that with the one step forward, two steps back.
Uh-huh. Concrete changes. Well, yeah. I mean, I do. I have seen concrete changes. I see that in the communities. They're, this isn't something that's so new to them anymore. It's like, okay, we're on the map. Okay, it's something that, oh yeah, well they did it in that school also, and then they did it in that community center also, and yeah, and it's okay. It's kosher. It's more accepted now than it was in the very beginning. And yeah, and I see openness also within people to the messages as well. Where in the beginning there was like, what? What is this? This is totally strange to us. Now they're kind of more talking our language and saying, yeah, we need to save these open areas. This is really important. It's important that we, that we're active, that we're doing something. So yeah, definitely have seen changes, and even within the kids, just the kids taking these messages home to their parents, and getting feedback from the parents, and definitely have seen some changes. It's slow as anything. Any changes in the Haredi community are always going to be really slow. So the
Cool.
progress is slow, but it's there.
Okay, thanks. Briefly, is in schools, can you just say a word about environmental education in general? Is it a separate subject, specific textbooks, and how many years do kids typically have environmental education?
Well, right now it's not something that's a necessary. It's not something that's chova. That's
Required.
required. Thank you. Just this year, actually, the last minister of education, she made it required that kids will learn about climate change, which is huge, and that's going to go into effect this September. So now, finally, it is required learning. But up until now, it hasn't been required. Sometimes it comes in on the science hours. A lot of times it's that. A lot of times it's on the hours of chinuch chevrati. What do you
Social
say that?
studies?
What's that?
Social studies?
Oh yeah, well yeah, social studies, or not exactly, but yeah, they kind of find some way to get it in there, but it's not something that has been required in environmental education as a whole. But most of the times it's on the science hours.
Okay. Um, so you also just touched on this, but do we have strategies? Do you have strategies for trying to get Haredim to do things like, not burn plastic on a regular basis, especially Lag BaOmer fires, and also the whole issue of disposable kitchenware? Are we
Right.
touching on that at all?
Well, yeah, we do touch on that. Those are definitely things that we talk about in our programming. But it's as far as the burning plastic and all that kind of stuff, that's something that the kids themselves do, or not cutting live trees, for Lag BaOmer to get wood. They don't even understand the wood's green. It's not even going to burn. Just like teaching that kind of stuff. But as far as not using disposable plastic, that's actually a little bit touchy, because that means then what? Mom's gonna wash all the dishes, but she's got 10 kids and she works a job, and it's like it was kind of seen as like putting a lot of undue burden upon her. Like, what, you're gonna brainwash my kids and then they're gonna come home and then I'm gonna have to do more work. So that kind of stuff, we do talk about it, but we put more of an emphasis on that in the teacher trainings that we have done. We have done teacher trainings, and in the community centers when we have the one-on-one interactions with the parents that come, and we'll talk to them about that kind of stuff. But
Cool.
yeah, definitely something that's important.
Cool. I want to respect everybody's time. There's just a couple minutes left. By the way, you're getting a lot of positive feedback in the
Great,
chat and in the question and answers, Oshra. People really
great,
enjoyed it.
great.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Quick question. Do the Haredim have any concerns about danger in untamed areas?
Danger and item areas, a little bit. They're a little bit nervous about it. It's not necessarily something that's like they're comfortable with. But they feel a lot of confidence when they go out with us. So just going out one time with us and kind of seeing that it's safe here, then that gives them the confidence to be able to do it in the future. Yeah, so yeah, that's they're like with anything in the creative community. It's something they don't know, they're not familiar with. They're a little bit nervous at first, but they're happy to get on board with it right away. Yeah, and like I said before, one of the main things that we have, the main challenges that we have in continuing this program is funding. A lot of the funding that we had before Corona and after Corona is way different. We don't have the same level of funding that we had before, not even from the government. The government, as you know, the political situation in Israel is crazy. So even government funding that's secured doesn't actually get down to the schools because of all the craziness in politics. and we lose schools because of that. There's no funding, they're not doing the programming. So I just want to thank everybody for all of your support. If you want to support our programming, there are so many Haredi school children and adults and communities in Israel that they want this. They know about it. They're open to it because of the work that we've done. They've accepted it, but without the funding, we're not able to do it. So I'm happy to speak to folks if you want to hear about specific things that need funding. Talking one-on-one, and your support will really help us out so much.
Thank you so much, Oshra. And there's David has posted David Amichai doing back office here. Thank you so much, David.
Thanks,
as well.
folks.
Posted. No, we're not done yet. We still got a minute or two, or we can go over it by just a minute or two, I guess. There's still a bunch of questions.
I see there's a lot of questions. I don't mind staying on a little bit longer if folks want me to answer their questions, or
3-4 minutes. I have another
okay.
But so is there any programming for older kids, high school and older?
That's something we haven't quite cracked yet. No, for older schools, no. That's just elementary school in Haredi world goes up until 8th grade. So we go up until 8th grade. After that, they go to yeshiva, or they'll go to, the girls will go to like a high school, and that's really hard to crack. So we just have been focusing on up to grade 8. The boys, forget it. After grade 8, it's just virtually impossible. And the girls, there has been a little bit leeway, but we just kind of said let's focus on 1st through 8th. There's enough kids there.
One of the people here, Ellen Werner, who I think is in the States, she says she has Haredi relatives in Israel and knows the community well, is offering to consult. She thinks we could use some sensitivity training and some other issues. She mentions, and I'm addressing this to you personally, Oshra, these issues can be addressed in women's Torah study and Kala classes. So maybe we can get you in some of
that's interesting. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's interesting to think how to get those things, how to mesh those things. But yeah, that's really the place to do it, because these women they're the ones who are running the household. So it's to get to them would be
Yeah. Someone also wants to know, don't the kids ask questions about how and why when you say really vague things, and how do you deal with
about reproduction and all that?
Yeah.
I think they're just trained from their life. No, we don't get too many questions about it. I mean, maybe because we're really careful about how we talk about it, but no, we don't. I don't know. I haven't heard about it that there's been too many questions. Sometimes, say if we're in the Gazelle Valley and they'll see mating, or they'll see animals mating, and we'll just say, oh, they're giving a piggyback ride. We can't come out and say, oh, they're mating. So sometimes they'll see it, but we'll just try to oh, let's go look over there, instead, because that would be shooting ourselves in the foot. We don't want them to come home. Oh, I went to the Gazelle Valley and I saw them mating, and the guide said that's how they bring babies in the world. Well, that's it. We'll never see another Haredi kid in the Gazelle Valley ever again, because it goes by word of mouth. They'll say, well, they saw this, oh, and the guide said this, oh, forget it. So yeah, but they don't really know. Actually, we don't get those questions. The kids are super, trained to not go there.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Oshra. Thanks everybody for joining, for supporting. We hope to see you in Israel. We're open.
Come visit.
Business. Come visit. Come visit with Oshra. Maybe she'll hook you up with one of those classes. Is visiting Jerusalem, is the Gazelle Valley or the Jerusalem Bird Observatory.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Great, wonderful.
Thanks everybody.
You so much. Have a great time out in Cali.
Thank you.
See you back here in the heat. And thanks everybody for joining. Thanks all our supporters, and really appreciate it. Signing off from Tel Aviv, from Los Angeles, and from the spirit of Jerusalem that we've been talking about tonight.
Have a good day. Bye.
Have a good day. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you, David.